If you have to file for bankruptcy, should you do it individually or by yourself, or should you do it jointly or with your spouse? Which is better for you? Hi, I'm Darrell Castle. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Tennessee. And the answer to that question, as the answer to most lawyer question goes, is that depends. Depends on what debts you want to get rid of. But the real answer to it is you should do it the way that allows you to keep the most property and discharge the most debt. That is usually the best way to do it. Now, if you do a bankruptcy jointly or with your spouse, there are some advantages to that and maybe some disadvantages. Some of the advantages to it is that you get rid of all the debt that each of you has individually and you own jointly together, or you owe jointly together, I should say. And if you have property that you own jointly or individually, all that property has to be considered, everything. It indicates a change of direction for you as a couple. You're going to do your life differently. You're going to approach it differently. That's what a joint petition says. Now let's look at if you file individually. Number one, if you filed individually, you filed in your own name, left your husband or wife out of it, what that would mean is that all of your dischargeable debts that you individually owe would be discharged. All of the debts that you owe jointly with your spouse would be discharged, but your spouse would be left hanging on all that debt. Any debt that your spouse owed individually and any debt that you and your spouse owed jointly, that spouse would still have. Now, another advantage of filing individually is that it might help in some credit situations, possibly. Let's say that you had perfect credit and you were concerned about that you owed very little debt yourself, hardly any. But your spouse did not have perfect credit. Your spouse's credit was bad, and your spouse owed a lot of unsecured debt, credit card debts, medical bills, things of that nature. Well, then it might be to your advantage for only your spouse to file. You would still be able to file later if things got worse for you. So those are some things to consider. Now, one other thing is that in this state, in Tennessee, in my state, exemptions are doubled when you file jointly. Generally speaking, that's true. That means that the amount of property that you can keep is twice as much if you file jointly. So that is a factor to consider depending on where you are with it. Now, your attorney, when you go to consider bankruptcy, can explain that to you, but in general, you can keep twice as much property if you file jointly. So that is a factor to consider. All these things should be discussed with your attorney to see where it stands with you and which is best for you folks. Hi, I'm Darrell Castle. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Tennessee. And if you feel you have need of bankruptcy protection, whether it's individual or jointly with your spouse, I'd love to talk with you about that, folks. Call me for a free appointment or contact me at the Get in Touch form on this page.